I don't want to touch this. Okay. The ocean makes up 71% of the Earth's surface. It's a source of food, energy, and life, but largely a mystery. We know more about outer space than we do the ocean. On a given day, the ocean can be calm and blue, or frenzied, angry, and dark. August 2016. Rose and I secured our scuba diving gear and rolled off the boat. We descended and landed right next to our familiar dive site. Conditions were good with about 40 feet of visibility. I was eager to finish the lionfish survey as the current was pulling me by the buoy attached to my hip. When we were done, we floated away, headed north. We passed by lots of the usual: anchors, patries, and sand. Suddenly, in front of me was something I'd never seen before. I started kicking furiously in place, and my breathing increased. Rose looked over at me, her eyes wide behind her mask. In 1992, Miami-Dade County placed several boats, barges, and artificial structures into the ocean to create artificial reefs. This is still a common practice. Several people were involved in this project, one being a man who has been actively diving in South Florida for the better part of 40 years. That man, Mike Nelson, has since become a mentor and a good friend. Shortly after the completion of this project, Hurricane Andrew blasted through South Florida. I'm sure that many of you have seen accounts and photographs of the damages incurred, particularly here in the Homestead area. What a lot of people aren't as familiar with are the damages that happened underwater. After things settled, resource managers discovered that one of the artificial reefs also fell victim to the storm. One of two F-4 fighter jets went missing after Hurricane Andrew. These were placed in 90 feet of water. The force of the storm was that incredible, the wind and the waves taking no mercy on whatever's in their path, that they picked up and moved an entire jet sitting 90 feet deep. Why the other jet didn't move, we have no idea. Since the storm, we occasionally search for this plane. It was a treasure hunt of sorts to Mike Nelson, but searching for the F-4 was like looking for a needle in a haystack. You might be asking yourselves, how do you lose a plane? Imagine this. You pick up a shell on the beach and then drop it. Even though you're standing in crystal clear, ankle-deep water, you never see it again. Now, take that experience and multiply it by powers of 10. You have a plane that's about 15 feet long by 5 feet wide, sitting 90 feet deep, covered by billions of gallons of water. Even with the most accurate GPS coordinates, this can be a daunting task. This area has a very colorful history of treasure seekers and wreckers. I never had an interest in buried treasure or the hunt, at least until I met Mike Nelson. Finding the F-4 became the forbidden fruit that teased all of us, at least when we had the chance to go look for it. You see, the original F-4 remained and had been designated a lionfish hotspot, and it was often used for lionfish studies. We would dive the F-4 and then drift north with the current, surveying the patch reefs nearby for lionfish, all of the while keeping one eye open for a missing plane. This was often a secondary mission, as 90 feet is a deep dive and requires special planning and boat support. And since we were searching for something that was not a historical shipwreck, it wasn't a priority to use time or resources to go looking for this plane. In August of 2016, I was out with the newest batch of interns and Sophia, the woman who first hired me years before. I was to dive the F-4 with Rose, one of the interns. On our boat ride out, I gave her a briefing of the site as she'd never been there before. Rose and I secured our scuba diving gear and rolled off the boat, descended, and landed right by our familiar dive site. I was eager to finish the lionfish survey as the current was pulling me by the buoy attached to my hip. When we were done, we drifted away, headed north. We passed by lots of the usual: anchors, patch reefs, and sand. Suddenly, something was in front of me that I'd never seen before. I started kicking furiously in place, and my breathing increased. Rose looked over at me, her eyes wide behind her mask. It was a man-made something, about the same size and shape as the F4 and covered in the same amount of growth. I was fairly certain that this was the missing F4, but it just couldn't be. We were only 3 minutes away from the other one. Communication underwater is difficult. Thankfully, Rose quickly realized that I was asking her to send a signal to the boat to ask them to mark a GPS coordinate. As she began to do this, she swam over to me and held up 4 fingers in front of her eyes behind her mask. And I vehemently shook my head, yes. Since our dive was over, we slowly came up. As soon as I broke the surface, I started yelling, "Sophia, Sophia, did you get the numbers? Did you get the coordinates? I think we found the F4. She did get the numbers. She did get the coordinates. Almost 24 years to the day after Hurricane Andrew, we stumbled across the F4. My jubilation came when Mike Nelson himself confirmed it, as he was the only one out of all of us who had ever seen both planes. All of this time, it was hidden beneath the surface, under our noses, only about 300 feet away from the first plane. Now, it's on to solving the next mystery of the ocean. I wonder what I'll find.